In Haiti, health authorities registered 594 deaths from cholera and 32,141 suspected cases, almost 5 months after the resurgence of the disease. In the United States, a court in New York finds former Mexican Security Secretary Genaro Garcia Luna guilty of drug trafficking. And in Russia, President Vladimir Putin delivered his annual address to report on the main domestic and foreign policy path ahead. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Haitian health authorities have registered 594 deaths from cholera and over 32,000 suspected cases, almost 5 months after the resurgence of the disease. According to the National Ministry of Health and Population, 2,000 confirmed cases were reported in the 10 departments of the country, together with 22,469 suspected cases and more than 28,300 hospitalizations with symptoms related to this pathology. The outbreak of cholera reappeared 3 years after the last recorded case on the country, and the current increase in reported cases occurs in the midst of a severe social, political, economic, and security crisis that has limited the access of thousands of citizens to medical assistance. In addition, the highest number of cases corresponds to the capital and its surrounding cities that are under the influence of armed gangs, responsible for thousands of deaths and kidnappings in 2022. Nicaraguans on Tuesday paid homage to national hero General Augusto Cesar Sandino on the 89th anniversary of his murder. Thousands of Nicaraguans participated in the Sandino Siempre Más Allá walk, held nationwide to commemorate the anniversary of the death of the also known as Hero of Las Segovias. The march ended with a concert in an atmosphere of fraternity, where workers from different unions and social sectors, Sandinista militants, and supporters waved the red and black flag to the rhythm of revolutionary music. Nicaragua honored the example and inspiration from the general of free men and women who planted the seed of love for the homeland and the defense of sovereignty in the new generations. A U.S. District Court in New York finds former Mexican Security Secretary Genaro Garcia Luna guilty of drug trafficking. The Mexican government considers justice has been served. The jury returned a guilty verdict on all 5 counts before Judge Brian Cogan, who will hand down the sentence on June 27th. Garcia Luna faces a maximum sentence of life imprisonment and a minimum of 20 years in prison. This concludes the trial of former President Felipe Calderon, Secretary of Public Security, the highest-ranking former Mexican official ever tried in the United States. Garcia Luna's lawyer, Cesar de Castro, said they will appeal the verdict and expressed both Garcia and his family are disappointed since they think the jury's decision was justified only on the basis of statements made by former security agents and drug lords.
Had no reliable evidence to corroborate their witnesses. Mr. Garcia Luna, his family, and the defense team trusted in the process and trusted that the jury would see through the government's case. We are very disappointed that it did not, but we respect the jury's decision.
Also in the United States, the Norfolk Southern Railroad Company in charge of the train derailment in Ohio revealed that a large amount of soil and water were removed from the accident site due to substantial contamination. According to the company, about 7,000 kilograms of soil and more than 3,800,000 liters of water were removed from the affected area in the community of East Palestine, although it did not clarify what harmful substances were found in the removed elements. Most of the cars carrying the hazardous materials have been decontaminated but remain on site while the National Transportation Safety Board investigates the incident. Norfolk Southern added, last February 3, a train with 38 cars carrying toxic substances ran off the tracks in East Palestine, after which there was great concern about the hazardous materials on board that were released. In the United States, a new derailment of more than 30 cars of a coal freight train is reported in the state of Nebraska. Local media reported that the incident occurred near the city of Gothenburg, where so far no injuries have been reported after the accident. Authorities assured that they are carrying out the corresponding investigations to determine the cause of the accident. It should be noted that the event occurred weeks after a train derailment in Ohio caused a chemical spill, which caused evacuations of citizens and concerns about the state of health of the community. In the U.S., at least 2 people were killed and 3 others injured after a fire broke out in an industrial area in the state of Florida. According to firefighter sources, the blaze broke out in the town of Medley and affected several parked vehicles. Officials said the flames were completely extinguished, while the injured were taken to health centers for treatment as soon as possible. The authorities have also begun investigating to determine how the fire started. In Recife, Brazil, where Carnival resumed this week after being cancelled for 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic, thousands of revelers came out to dance down the streets behind the Nothing Group. Our correspondent Brian Meir has more.
In Recife, one of the historic epicenters of Brazil's street carnival, thousands of revelers from across the spectrum of the political left came out on Monday to celebrate nothing.
It's a carnival thing. You create a fantasy, and our fantasy is nothing. But inside this nothing, there's a lot of leftists and a lot of happiness. Everything is different.
The Bloco da Nada, or Nothing Group, started 20 years ago when Gerson da Silva couldn't find any paint for the white flag he had sewn to lead his new parade group. Although he was so disappointed he almost cancelled it, his wife suggested that he just go out anyway with a blank flag.
A guy leaned his head out of the window of a bus that was stuck in traffic and looked at a flag and said, "There's nothing on it. This is the Nothing Group. We decided that this would be our new name."
As years passed, Nothing became more than just a funny name. It began to symbolize the hope of a leftist utopia, which would have to start from nothing. And the group began inviting guest speakers from areas like philosophy and history to host debates about the concept of nothing.
The Nothing is a resistant group made of very politicized leftists who don't just meet to celebrate Carnival, which is our essence as people. But we also have philosophical and literary meetings to debate the politics of Carnival. So this is it. Nothing.
Brian Meir, teleSUR, Recife.
Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account of teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday delivered his annual address to the State of Duma and the Federation Council, the 2 chambers of the Federal Assembly, to report on the main domestic and foreign policy path ahead. The speech has been widely broadcasted internationally as it addressed various issues of relevance not only for the Russian people but for the international community. The President's message explained the strategic directions of Russia's development for the near future, including political, economic and ideological provisions as concrete proposals in the field of legislative work of both houses of parliament. According to the President, Russia's main purpose in the world arena consists in defending its own home, while the West seeks only to obtain total domination at the international level. President Putin warned that the West intends to turn the Ukraine conflict into a global confrontation.
We're not fighting for the people of Ukraine. I've said it many times. The people of Ukraine have become the hostage of the Kiev regime and its Western overlords, who have effectively occupied the country in the political, military and economic sense. Dear friends, I want to thank everyone, all the people of Russia, for their courage and determination. To say thank you to our heroes, soldiers and officers of the Army and Navy, the National Guard, members of the Special Services and all law enforcement agencies, soldiers of the Donetsk and Lugansk Corps.
The Russian head of state praised the strength of the country's economy and the managing system.
The Russian economy and the managing system turned out to be much stronger than the West had thought. Thanks to the joint work of the government, parliament, the Bank of Russia, the subjects of the Federation, and of course the business community and labor communities, we ensured the stability of the economic situation, protected citizens, saved jobs, prevented market shortages, and propped up the financial system. The meaning of our work is not to adapt to current conditions, but the strategic task is to bring our economy to new frontiers. Now everything is changing, and very quickly. It is a time not only of challenges, but also of opportunities. This is true today, and our future existence depends on how we implement them.
Delivering the State of the Nation address, President Putin said the U.S. is planning to begin testing of new types of nuclear warheads, adding that Russia will also begin testing of nuclear weapons if the U.S. does so.
Some people in Washington, and we know this for a fact, are already thinking about the possibility of a natural test of the nuclear weapons. New types of nuclear warheads are being developed in the United States. This information is available. In this situation, the Ministry of Defense and Rosatom must ensure readiness to test Russian nuclear weapons. We, of course, will not be the first to do this, but if the U.S. conducts tests, we will do so too. No one should be under the illusion that global strategy parity can be violated.
China's foreign ministry on Tuesday criticized military aid provided to Ukraine by the United States and its allies, saying that the U.S. claims to maintain peace, but actually it's making money from the crisis.
The U.S. is the largest supplier of weapons to the battlefield in Ukraine. Yesterday, the U.S. just announced another $500 million in military aid to Ukraine. It makes people wonder what the U.S. is up to by falsely claiming that China is offering weapons. The U.S. claims to maintain peace, but actually it is making money from the crisis.
Director of the Office of the Central Foreign Affairs Commission of the Chinese Communist Party, Wang Yi, arrived in Moscow as part of his visit, during which he hopes to reinforce a peace agenda within the framework of the Global Security Initiative. According to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, a meeting between the Chinese representative and Russian President Vladimir Putin is not ruled out, where strategic issues on the assessment of a global peace agenda would be discussed. The possible meeting seeks to pave the way for deepening and advancing bilateral mutual political trust. In this regard, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that during a meeting with one on the sidelines of a security conference in Munich, Germany, he had expressed his concern to the Chinese diplomat about Beijing's stance regarding the conflict in Ukraine. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, announced in Warsaw, the capital of Poland, that his country will host the next summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization to be held next year. The summit will coincide with the 75th anniversary of the founding of this warmongering alliance created in Washington, D.C. on April 4, 1949. In his speech in front of hundreds of people at the former Royal Castle in Warsaw, Biden said the United States will impose more sanctions against Russia this week and advocated NATO member countries' support for Ukraine. On Wednesday, the U.S. President is scheduled to meet in the capital with the heads of states and government of 9 countries on the eastern flank of the Atlantic Alliance. Biden's visit to Ukraine and Poland was criticized for neglecting domestic problems such as the harmful consequences of a train derailment with chemical substances. More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. On Monday, at least 6 people were killed and 300 injured after 2 new earthquakes of magnitude 6.5 and 5.8 were recorded south of Turkey. According to Turkish media, 294 people were injured in the southeastern province of Hatay. 18 of them are in serious condition and have already been transferred to the cities of Adana and Dortiol. The Euro-Mediterranean Seismological Center reported that the earthquake was registered 9 kilometers from Antakya in Turkey and 75 kilometers from the Syrian city of Latakia at a depth of 10 kilometers. The telluric movements were perceived in Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt, and Cyprus. On Tuesday, UN delegation visited northern Syria to assess the damage caused by February's quakes, which have killed thousands across Turkey and Syria. Even before the earthquake wreaked havoc on both sides of the border, the Syrian rebel-held enclave of 4.6 million people was plagued by extreme misery, with many living in displacement camps and relying on humanitarian aid to survive. During the tour, UN Deputy Regional Humanitarian Coordinator David Carden assessed complaints regarding delays in getting UN aid to affected areas. Carden said that last week the UN and President Assad reached a deal to open 2 additional crossings. Still, critics say the UN should have used additional crossings without waiting for approval or found another way to get aid in light of their situation on the ground.
To see what the needs were. There's huge needs in shelter, in health, the need for fresh water, for sanitation, and of course removal of debris.
The government of Botswana announced a rise in poaching of different rhino species. According to Botswana's Minister of Tourism, Phil Dakeren, the increase follows the introduction of strong measures against poachers in neighboring South Africa, forcing them to look elsewhere for horns in the face of demand on the international market. In Asia, rhino horns are used in traditional medicine for their supposed therapeutic effects. According to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, a total of 285 white rhinos and 23 black rhinos remain endangered in Botswana. Africa's longest river, the Nile, is under threat. The river is essential for millions of people in the continent. Global warming and misuse by humans now jeopardize the future of the Nile, whose flow has fallen from 3,000 cubic meters per second to 2,830 in the past 5 decades. Water expert Ahmed Al-Mufti predicts that loss of water will have environmental impacts, while the increase of population will bring about an overuse and misusage of its waters. According to the United Nations, the lack of rainfall and the increased droughts expected in Africa means that the river flow could fall by 70% by 2100. 5 upstream states signed a cooperative framework agreement in 2010 which outlined the principles, rights, and obligations for cooperative management and development of the river's water resources. Experts believe the Nile can only be safe if the countries it passes through commit to better joint management and sustainable development policies. In eastern Cuba, a forest fire of great proportion is affecting Pinares de Mayari, Holguin province. The fire is also threatening the facilities of the Mountain Research Center, which is why extinguishing actions have been intensified in the surrounding area. Efforts are being made to build a fire break road since Monday afternoon in order to interrupt the passage of the flames towards Villa Pinares. Forces of the Fire Command 16 confront the flames to avoid their extension to the wooden buildings. The first 4 outbreaks were identified last Saturday, and although the firefighting system was immediately activated, the flames gained ground due to the strong winds and the abundance of combustible material. The Ministry of the Interior informed that in January 2023, Cuba reached 80 forest fires, a record figure for the month of February, according to the historical records of the Forestry Ranger Corps. The death toll from the heavy rains that have hit the coast of the Brazilian state of Sao Paulo on Tuesday rose from 40 to 44, while the number of missing remains around 40. Official sources report that the hardest hit area is the municipality of São Sebastião, where 43 deaths have been registered in what is already one of the greatest tragedies in the history of the region. The area endured a record level of rainfall in the history of the country, with more than 680 millimeters in 24 hours. Meanwhile, the other fatalities was recorded in the town of Ubatuba. Due to the climatic event, some 2,500 people have been forced to leave their homes and take temporary shelters in the homes of relatives, schools, and the headquarters of civil society organizations. More than 600 troops, including Army soldiers, are continuing uninterrupted rescue and search efforts to locate the missing and save people who have been stranded in communities in the area. In Italy, Venice's local tide monitoring authority reported the city's canals are experiencing unusually low tides. In a report published on Tuesday, the agency added the water reached 66 centimeters below the average lagoon level, with many canals running dry. Venice traditional sailors known as gondolieri and public transport experienced major disruption as they had to change routes to avoid shallows. In this sense, the tide monitoring authority explained the low water levels are caused mainly by dry weather and tidal change. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.